whole variety of other social media things as well, but probably the best way if you want to follow and interact with these broadcasts is to join the HAPS app, because then you get to see all the comments and all the stuff is much more integrated. But you can watch on, Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and the like. And what I'm doing in June, trying to do something every day as part of the 30 Days Wild project, and that's a project organised by the Wildlife Trusts, and it encourages people to do what they call random acts of wildness. Every day in June, try and do something to engage with the natural world. People who know me, that's not a massive hardship for me to do that, but I thought what I'd try and do this year as part of this is just put at least a brief video, a brief something of what I'm doing on here every day. Might occasionally just be a still image or something if I'm tied up somewhere and can't get a broadcast going. And what I'm going to do today, come down here to Perryville Wood, which is a nature reserve I'm involved in running here in northwest London. And one of the things I do here when I find caterpillars that I don't know which species they are, which is quite often the case, because even though there is now some good literature for the identification of caterpillars in Britain, you tend to need them to be in their final stage before pupating, before you can use that literature and work out what they are. So what I tend to do is to keep them and rear them on, hopefully get them to pupate and then turn into adults, and that makes it much easier to identify what I've got. So at the moment I've only got one caterpillar alive, and I'm just popping down today to check that it's still alive, bring it some fresh food, clean out the container it's in, see what's going on. So we'll go and do that now. We walk now into the wood. You can hear a lot of noise from the ringneck parakeets shouting. You can probably hear a lot of noise from the central line rattling away in the background there. And we'll just have to put up with all of that. And you can see the woodland is now looking quite lush and green. The leaves have really come on the trees a lot in the last couple of weeks. If we turn this round and look into the wood, you can see that it's, nice green, lots of leaf on trees. Probably still a bit to come out there. You can see the canopy, there's still a bit of light getting through. Some of that leaf is probably still to fully open on those oaks up the top, but the hazel's well in leaf down here. So anyway, we'll walk to where I keep the caterpillars now, which is in this little building here. This little building used to be our toilets before we moved to a more modern toilet system, but we used to do that, and rather than knock down the building or get rid of it, we repurposed it for looking after insect larvae for invertebrate rearing, which is what it says on the side. So people, when they come to visit the reserve, are perfectly entitled to come along here and see what's going on in here, as long as they don't interfere with it. But all I'm going to do today is just check on one of the containers I've got in here, which has a caterpillar in it. I'll take it out here because there's just more light out here where we are. So there you can see there was a container. You can see I've written something on it. Not a very exciting something, but I've written a letter just to remind me this is container C. I've written where I saw it, which was Horsenden Hill East, and the food plant was some kind of cherry, Prunus genus. I haven't actually identified the food plant fully. We think it might be something that's partly a cultivated variety. But then what I do is I will open the container, which is harder to do one-handed than you would think. And hopefully the caterpillar will still be here and alive. They are, there it is, okay. So I'll just take the old bits of vegetation out. And you can see here the caterpillar lying on its side. It's a geometrid moth, Geometridae, or inchworm, or earth measurer, or looper. They have lots of other names. but I'm not quite sure which species it is. And all these black dots are frass, but essentially insect droppings. So what I'll try and do is just clear them off and chuck them out, because if you leave them, they can start to get mouldy, and that can cause infection and cause harm to the caterpillar. I'm not going to particularly interfere with it because they can be quite delicate. Probably would be fine if I tapped it, but it seems healthy enough. Its defense is to pretend to be a stick, so it's doing its defense very effectively here by not moving and hoping. If I was a predatory thing, I'd be thinking, oh, well, that's just a stick, I'm going to leave that. But what I've done is I've popped down here and I've brought some extra leaves from the tree I found it on that I collected on the way over here this evening. I'm just going to put them in there with it. Put the old ones back, they seem quite fresh as well. They were just put in yesterday. And that way it should have plenty to feed on till I'm back in a day or two's time to see how it's doing. So that's one of our caterpillars. Well, it's the only one I've got that's going at the moment. Don't know which species it is, but it's obviously one of the Geometrid moths. So we'll put it back in here. And then once the caterpillars have finished being caterpillars, they turn into pupa, and I tend to put them in some sort of emergence cage. The one on the left is empty, but this one still has got a pupa in it. Let me see if I can get in there and find that for you. Sorry, not the best of views. I'll turn it around so you're looking at me whilst I'm doing this. I'm not sure that's a better view, but there we go. So inside this container, I was keeping this pupa. This is one of the Noctuidae moths. I think from the caterpillar and what the caterpillar looked like in its final stage, this one is going to be a broad-bordered yellow underwing when it comes out. But I've reared it on now, I've got the pupa, so I'm just going to leave it in this emergence cage, which is sealed up, and every couple of days I will check to see if that's emerged, and if it has, that will allow me to confirm the identification. So anyway, that was today's task, basically just to look after that caterpillar, check on the pupa, make sure, see if it had closed yet, see if it had turned into an adult, which it hasn't. And then what I'll do is I'll just wander back. And yeah, that's me largely done for this evening. So there we go, that was another broadcast for 30 Days Wild. A little project encouraging you at least once a day in June to get out and do something to engage with the natural world around you. It's not too late to start, just keep going into July if you missed the start of June, or just keep going all year, because it's always good to go and see the natural world. But there we are, we will just wander back from here. And I will sign off there. It was only a brief broadcast this evening. And encourage you all to get out and see the world around you.